It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome into another Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. Alan, we're really stretching the limits now of after. Is that Whataburger? Yep, it is. Whataburger cup. I honestly, when you first started to lift the cup up, I was thinking, is this Canes? Is this a shot at Derek that we're getting on the podcast right now? But no, Whataburger. Anyways, we're back inside today. We're really stretching the limits of this being afternoon. I guess Hawaii time is what we're looking for this afternoon drive. But how are we feeling?
Feeling good. Tired. Back's a little sore. Been a lot of work. I forget how much work this is every year, but it's a long day. We had practice starting at 9:30 today. I just got done with interviews. Trying, but having fun doing it.
I mentioned the last couple of days I was a bit jealous after hearing that. Yeah, you know what? I was jealous on Monday and Tuesday. That's kind of went away here as we sit here on Wednesday. So
yeah, may or may not have been at least last night. Also,
there we go.
Contribute to the tiredness.
There we go. That's what we want to hear. That's what we want to hear. We'll dive into some individual players that I have questions about that have been down there. But we, of course, have gotten some questions and stuff from the YouTube community that I feel like we got to get into. And some of that will play into the Senior Bowl stuff as well. The first one, I feel like this is just something that we can just kind of check this box right away. Because I've had a couple people mention this to me separately. I finally saw it pop up in the YouTube comments. But we've talked about how we wouldn't be completely shocked if Isaac Seumalo, just named his first Pro Bowl, by the way, were to decide to hang him up this offseason and retire. Do we feel like that could open the door potentially for a James Daniels reunion, or because of the assumed price tag and where we're at with the draft class, or even free agency, a cheaper option, we just feel like that ship has sailed?
I think if Isaac Seumalo retired, the Steelers would want to sign a significant offensive line, like a starting guard type. So sure, you could put James Daniels in the mix. I don't know where he is in this recovery from that Achilles injury. I don't even know if he's not right now. We probably put in the cart before the horse. I was actually just talking about this with Nick Faribault. I really like the interior offensive lineman here, and I keep just trying to find a way to justify saying yeah, it'd be really cool for the Steelers to draft Wideouts and put him next to Zach Frazier and there's this guard from North Dakota State. You could just pile him on the other side from Mason McCormick and get yourself a nice little pair of good upper Midwestern boys. But I don't know. We talked about that yesterday a little bit, and I think I don't know. I really like the guards here, but I just don't know. I think if Isaac's retired, they would sign somebody.
Yeah, and maybe that could lead to the next question that we can bring up here, because I do wonder, maybe then it is not as significant of an investment either way, but maybe it's double dipping, right? Like adding a veteran free agent at the position, but also drafting interior offensive linemen in the middle rounds, as opposed to just a developmental or depth piece later on if you were signing a more significant player in free agency. Because we got a question, how likely do we feel like they are to double dip at cornerback or defensive lineman? We talked about the defensive linemen yesterday. I want to talk more about them today, and also a little bit more about the cornerbacks. But do you feel like there's two spots to maybe look at? If you were saying the likelihood, if there's spots to double dip at, those are probably up there.
Yeah, I think defensive line, Isaiah Loudermilk's a free agent. Montravius Adams is a free agent. And I would say that both Larry Ogunjobi and Dean Lowry kind of have fairly tenuous spots. Ogunjobi because of his contract and the salary cap number. Lowry because he was healthy scratch most of this year. So there's definitely room to add 2 defensive linemen in this draft class, and it's a really good defensive line draft class. So there's they should want to do that. Absolutely. Corner, I don't know if I see enough opportunities in terms of roster spots. Joey Porter's going to be there. Corey Trice is going to be there. Beanie Bishop's going to be there. How many more corners do you need? Probably not 2 more. I don't know. Maybe, probably 2. But one of those is going to be some kind of external. I think they're going to do something at corner before we get to the draft. So I have a hard time seeing them want 2 corners. I do think 2 D tackles is possible. I think 2 running backs is possible. Cordell Patterson is a guy would put in the same kind of category as Larry, where you like look at the numbers and the cap hit and you say, I don't know if this is going to happen next year or not. So, I think that's definitely running back 2 times possible. And we've seen these guys over and over again now. Like they've done it a bunch where they've gone back to the same position twice in the same draft class. So I don't think there will be any hesitation to do that. And this draft's really deep. Running back, defensive line, those are the spots. Wide receiver, probably not so much. But also, it's possible. I spent the whole morning rush yesterday talking about double dipping a wide receiver. But again, I think that's a position where they're going to make a move before the draft. And so you would be getting your second guy with 1 draft pick. I have a hard time seeing 2 draft picks of wide receiver.
Yeah, like if you were just considering double dip, meaning outside acquisitions,
free
agency and the draft combined, yes.
Wide receivers, 2 corners, 2 defensive linemen, 2 running backs. Yeah, I'd agree with all 4 of those.
Yeah. Kind of within that same bucket, because I saw there was like some comments that branched off from that original YouTube comment. Somebody basically, I don't know if they were asking that person that posted that or asking us for the show and just happened to reply to that, but they asked us about the possibility of a Dante Jackson reunion. I know that there was some chatter that the Steelers and him would both like for that to happen. What's your take on that? Would that be the veteran cornerback and then you're just talking about drafting one?
I mean, Dante said he'd like to come back. I kind of get the feeling the Steelers would prefer something of an upgrade there. But
so like, Zachary Smith.
I don't know what form what form that would take. I don't get the sense that Dante at his age, coming off the injury season that he had, is going to be super high demand. So I feel like he's a player you can wait on, where like if somebody snaps him up on the first day, you go, okay, I guess he's yours. But otherwise, I think they can afford to wait on him and see what they think they might be doing in the draft, what's available in trades. There's a lot to figure out there. And so I think there's some other stuff that has to happen first. I wouldn't think that he would be like a day one of like a between now and free agency re-sign. Like I don't think that'll happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in that same bucket. All right, let me ask you a draft-related question, and then this will kind of segue back into the Senior Bowl stuff that's going on down there and how it relates to the Steelers. Stephen 116th said, what position do you feel like has the biggest drop-off from round 1 to round 2 within this class?
It's a really good question, and I'm not sure I really firmly have just like of the positions that are of interest to the Steelers, right? Because
yeah.
I haven't looked at a tackle all year. I haven't looked at a linebacker, period. They don't exist to me right now. Edge rusher. I don't even know Abdul Carter, and then Shamar Stewart's here. He's very good. I don't know that much. I would say that wide receiver to me has a very steep drop from right after where the Steelers pick. There's going to be a really good wide receiver. I think one of the top 4 wide receivers, Ted McMillan, Luther Burden, Emeka Egbuka, and Matthew Golden, will almost certainly be available to the Steelers at 21. Probably, I think none of those guys get outside the first round. And I think once you leave that group, and I honestly don't think Burden is necessarily even a great fit for the Steelers, but I think once you leave that group, I think the idea of guys that could come in and be kind of plug and play options as immediate contributors start to get pretty slim. You do have Trey Harris there from Ole Miss, pretty consistently a second-round pick. Alec Ayuminor from Stanford, same deal. I do like both of those players. Harris is much more of a project kind of guy. Ayuminor, maybe he belongs in that conversation. Savion Williams from TCU. I don't know why he's not here. He's a big guy. I think people look at Quentin Johnson and get a little afraid because, same. But I just think I don't think there's very much after. There's no sure things after those first couple guys at wide receiver. That's probably the position where I see the deepest drop off. Defensive line, like, there's this group includes Kenneth Grant, Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon, Tyler Williams, even into like TJ Sanders, Deion Walker, that are like late first through end of second guys that I don't like. I'm not sure there's a huge difference between, like, if you look at like mock draft database, like right now, Grant is 19, Derek Harmon's 29, and TJ Sanders is 56. And like, I don't like, yeah, there's differences, but that's not like, to me, that's a pretty small difference. And running back is the smallest of them. Like, yeah, Ashton Jeanty is a really good player. But like the difference between Omarion Hampton and Devin Neal, which spans like 7 players on the list, pretty minimal for me. I really like Devin Neal.
Yeah, me too. I think just to touch on the receiver thing that you're talking about there too, couldn't agree more. I mean, when you look at this group, like there's 3 guys that I think are 3-4 that are going to go in the first round, 3 that I feel very good about, probably 4. But it's like I struggle to find where I'd rank those guys, how many of those guys I'd rank in like a top 10 from past classes. You know what I mean? Like if you're talking about now, last year there was maybe even a little bit of a drop off to a little bit of an extent from the previous ones after like the top 4, but not to this degree for me. Like I think this is a pretty significant drop off. So I'm in full agreement there, even though I do like a guy like Jalen Royals out of Utah State as well, who I think is probably going to go.
Like him. Yeah, I like him.
Yeah,
Jaden Higgins is here. He's really impressed me too. And Ty Felton, I talked to today. I like the wide receiver down the board. I think Emeka Egbuka is actually underrated. Like, I think he probably is the best player that could, like, like maybe more likely than not will be available at 21 by a long shot. And I think he's so much better than all the rest of these options. Like, to me, it's really just about him. Like, honestly, like I like Matthew Golden, but it's really, to me, I think Egbuka, despite the fact that they've paid so much attention to defensive tackle here this week, I really feel like Egbuka is like the run to the podium
same
guy.
Yeah.
That like there's a big difference between him and everyone else on this list.
I'm in full agreement, and I think what even makes it tougher too is even if you were just like I get the best player thing, even as it relates to the position, but it's also tough when you almost feel like, can the Steelers even, like, does Luther Burden even make sense for them? Because of his type of receiver.
I would rather, if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, I would rather have Egbuka than Burden. I think Burden maybe in some schemes has a higher upside, but I think the Steelers would be better off with Egbuka than Burden. I think the Steelers would be better off with Egbuka than Golden. I think he's, besides McMillan, who's very good. And look, Trey Harris has a higher ceiling, but a much lower floor. Like, I think I'd rather have Egbuka than all of them. I think if the Steelers had to pick 2 and they were taking a wide receiver, and you're like, you have to take a wide receiver, I'd take Egbuka. And I don't think it'll turn out to be an embarrassing pick. Like, I think he's not a top 5 talent, but I think he'll be a very productive NFL wide receiver.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe overrating the other stuff a little bit, right? But like, such a cool clip to see where he, at the end of the game, he's basically telling Will Howard where they need to go with the ball, and it's not even like drawing up a play for him. Like, he's telling him, "Hey, look for Jeremiah on this play. This is what we got to do to beat." And he blocks. Like, they're just such a willing player to contribute when he's not the guy getting the ball, which at that position is such a hard thing to find. So I think he checks pretty much all the boxes for the Steelers. So I'm kind of hoping that that's the way it falls, even though we are like 3 months outside of that right now, and a lot could change. As of right now, that's where I'm sitting for the Steelers' ideal pick.
Yeah. I think right now, if you made me pick the player most likely to be drafted by the Steelers, that would be my choice.
Love to hear it. You mentioned to me, now he's not down there, but the interest in the receiver, we talked a lot, obviously, about how much interest was in the defensive line spot. If you were to say number 2, do you think that it is the receiver position that they're probably spending the second most time looking at?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time looking at offense today. It's funny. I showed up to practice, and Mike Tomlin was walking across the field, and I'm like, okay, where's he going? Back to the defensive line. Okay, I don't need to do that again. All right, so like, I was like, all right, what's Artie Smith doing? And that's kind of where I took my eyes today. I tried to really watch the quarterbacks. I kind of wasn't paying a really super close attention to them yesterday. I wanted to get a better look at them today, and I wanted to see what Artie Smith was looking at. and I really thought it was mostly wide receiver. Like that was the area that he was spending most of his time. I do think if you're looking at early round picks, I think wide receiver, D tackle to me, or I think wide receiver has clearly become like to me like the second choice here. That it's D tackle, wide receiver, and then kind of everything else. And I don't think it's because they don't think they need a running back. I just think that's an acknowledgement that running back is less important than the rest of them. And the wide receiver, obviously, they have a big need for a large influx of talent.
So when you tell me that they're looking at the receivers there, again, my mind goes to like the group that's there, and I'm wondering like who even like I mentioned Jalen Royals, he's down there. I do like Jaden Higgins. Xavier Restrepo out of Miami is there. Beyond that, like, is there a dude that to you has either impressed, like you went in looking for and has impressed, or you feel like has maybe caught yours and the Steelers' attention? Like, it's not that impressive of a group to me when I look at it on paper.
Yeah, a couple of each. So Jaden Higgins was a guy I did not watch a lot of Iowa State. I'll just be perfectly honest. Didn't know much about. Usually when I see guys that I don't watch a lot and like getting mocked in the top 100, I want to see them. And so I wanted to see him. I didn't come in with like a lot of preconceived notions. That guy's underrated. He's a really good player. I know like 2 years that he transferred up from FCS level, only 2 years at Iowa State and not the world's most prolific offense. I think he's really good. I think I'd take him in the second round. And he's big. And that's what the Steelers need. He's a perfect fit. So
Higgins on the Steelers is what we're hoping for this
maybe they'll get them both. Just cousin them up. They love brothers now, but maybe they'll just settle for a pair of Higginses that are unrelated.
Yeah, there we go.
I think on that team you mentioned Restrepo. I'm very familiar with his game. I see a lot of Miami. I'm not. I just feel like there's a lot of Roman Wilson there.
That's fair. Yeah.
On the other team, Jack Besh from TCU. Somebody the other day mentioned Mac Hollins as like the one guy that played for Artie Smith that the Steelers didn't sign, and then he had 2 touchdowns in the AFC Championship game, or 2 big plays anyway. And Jack Besh has Mac Hollins in an Arthur Smith offense. I think fits really, really well. He's not quite as big as Hollins, and I don't know if he can block, but like just the player, I think really lines up good for me. Ty Felton, this guy from Maryland. If you're looking for like, he's probably a 3rd round pick. He's raw, but very athletic. He's a little skinny. He is like, if the game plan for the Steelers is with George Pickens, do nothing and let him play out the year and draft someone who we think might be able to replace him in 2026, Ty Felton is the guy to draft. Like, he's a crazy combat catch guy, wiry, explosive, not like track star fast, tall, not as tall as George, I don't think. But like that's the like if that's the thought process of the wide receiver room, Ty Felton's the guy. I'll get it out of the way now.
Is that the kid out of Maryland?
I'll get it out of the way now. Dino Tomlin was like mentor in Maryland. He came in.
Oh man, okay.
He won. Dino was an older player, took him under his wing. Said Mike Tomlin has checked in, kept up with him over the years, and then caught up with him in Mobile this week. So I'm sure everyone will hate this idea just because he plays from Maryland. But I do like Ty Felton. Jalen Royals is a guy that DB has been lighting me up about for like 8 months now. I think is a really good player. He really impressed me today. He went against Max Hairston, the Kentucky corner, crossed his face with an inside move, got held. Hairston actually got his hand inside his shoulder pad, and he was able to keep running and like shake him loose, got through the hold, caught the pass, and went on to score. So like I was really impressed by that. He's got like real functional strength. I don't know if his blocking technique is a plus, but he's a strong guy. He's not big, but he's more like something the Steelers don't have, something that I don't think a lot of Arthur Smith. He's more like that Deebo Samuel type. Like, not saying he's the same player, but that sort of real, strong, sturdy interior option. And I don't know about the fit, but I really like the player.
Sticking with the offensive side here for a second and talking about the running backs, because we assume that the Steelers are going to take one. Now, is it somebody that's down there? Not sure. But if there was somebody, not just because you like the player, like you said, Devin Neal, you like what you've seen from him in the couple days down there so far. But if you were just talking about a fit for the Steelers based off what you've seen, what's your thought on that?
I asked Devin Neal today, what offensive scheme do you think fits you the best? And he kind of said, wide zone. As if that was obvious and that everyone should know that Devin Neal is a wide zone running back. I posted a clip on Twitter of him from today. I will also be putting another highlight reel from today up on the YouTube channel, but I haven't had a chance to do it yet. So that'll be up after this video here on YouTube. He's patient, man. I really like him. He's an experienced college player, 4-year college player, all 4 years at Kansas. Smart, really well spoken. Was a great interview. I think he's a really, really good player. I think he's a really, really good player. I don't know if the Steelers are going to pick him, but I would take him. Absolutely. There's a couple other guys here I really like that do interesting things. Damian Martinez got banged up today. I don't know if he'll be back, but he was having a nice week. Bashal Tootin, I believe that's how
Bashal Tootin out of Virginia Tech, yeah.
Virginia Tech. Gets to the edge really well. I feel like I've seen him running around up the sideline a whole bunch. Donovan Edwards,
you know what Steelers fans would love about him before you move on? How many times he got the ball on sweeps at Virginia Tech? They would absolutely love the and tosses, halfback tosses. Those are the two main ways they got him the ball.
He ran a lead toss today, by the way.
All right, but
I said yesterday I don't like the fit for Ollie Gordon. He's a good player, but I don't love it. Brashard Smith is interesting. Former wide receiver turned running back, undersized but has a lot of speed. I think you could do something with that. I don't know if it's the 1B to Jaylen Warren, but I think you could do something with that.
Okay. All right. Good stuff. We had a question that I'll parlay into asking about some defensive guys here because do we think that the Ravens running for 300 yards in the playoffs could be the driving force behind defensive line interest? Donald asked the question basically because he feels like double dipping in defensive line shouldn't be out of the question. We talked about the idea of double dipping at defensive line. Do you think that could be the driving force behind the idea of replenishing that side of the trenches?
I'm going to answer this one really quickly. Absolutely, yes. I'm going to fire this back at you. Okay. Is that a bad thing?
No.
Or a good thing?
I think you have to be. Yeah, I think you have to be built to beat the teams within your division first and foremost. That's how you have to look at. That's why I brought up the conversation. I know it was expanded more to the conference than the division, but your division is what you look at first and foremost to see how you need to build yourself, in my opinion. So they got smacked in the mouth. How are you going to punch back? And I think that this is how they answer that this offseason will be very telling.
Okay, but I know you follow the Penguins. Do you remember Jim Rutherford and the New York Rangers pushing around Sidney Crosby, and then he's like, "Oh, we gotta do something different here." And
don't trade a first round pick for Ryan Reeves.
I mean, look, the Steelers offense needs a lot of help here, and we're talking about drafting a defensive lineman in the first round. I'm not saying I disagree with this plan. I'm just saying, can you get blinded by reacting to what just happened to you, especially at the end of the season, especially in a dominant physical fashion by one of your rivals at your own detriment?
Yeah. No, the answer to that is absolutely yes, too. That's why, my yes isn't necessarily saying yes, that is 100% we need to double dip at this position, especially just within the draft, right? That's why you have free agency too. They can go out and get an impact player on the defensive line as well to help replenish that. Yeah, like I don't think you overreact to that as well. Like you still have to be aware of what the holes are within your own team that you felt like what has been the case for 18 months at the wide receiver position, as opposed to just feeling like, okay, the Ravens exposed this one thing about us within this playoff game. So there's obviously some give and take and some balance there, but certainly that's something that we've said for a while though, too, with the defensive line. I don't think it's overreacting to just one game though either. Like we've talked about the idea that we know Keanu Benton is a piece for the future. Obviously, Cam Hayward just had a fantastic season still, but how many more of those is he going to have? Larry Ogunjobi very well could move on from this year. And then what do you got going forward? So like that's a position I would have been looking at regardless.
Yeah, I think it would be one thing if you were one of two ways. If you were like throwing out your plan, your 10,000 foot plan, your long-term strategic vision of the team. That's what the Penguins did, right? They threw away their long-term strategic vision of who they are and who they want to be to try to be something else as a reaction. I don't think like building from the trenches out is the long-term vision. This is both of those things coming together. You're not taking the path that you were on where you wanted to go and deviating from it as a reaction to this. The other part of it is if you decided that this was so important that you couldn't let it wait, even if the players weren't there, then that would be a problem too. Like if you decided like what the Ravens did to us, we have to draft the defensive lineman, and you've been wanting to draft defensive lineman anyway, but if this was like the worst defensive line class in 30 years and there isn't a single player with a rating above 100 and you use that on the first round, if you Terrell Edmonds yourself, then that's really bad. Like, don't do that. But I don't think that's going to happen in this class, which is a really, really, really good defensive line class. I actually heard from a Steelers scout today that, they love this defensive line class. I'm like, yeah, no kidding. Mike already told all of us.
Also, to just kind of like expand upon that thought a little bit more as well, even if with it being a good class, even if the value is still not there at 21, say you see like 3-4 defensive linemen go before pick 21. How realistic is that? I'm not sure, no idea. But say Emeka Egbuka is on the board, but you're just so hell bent on taking a defensive lineman that you take like the 5th guy on your board because you feel like that's the position of need, or that you feel like got really exposed against the Ravens or whatever, then that's a bad process too. Yeah. Not just like the class could be good like this year's is, but if you're still deviating from the best possible player just to pick that need, that also falls into that bad process.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think if they don't, like if Egbuka's on the board at 21, they want a defensive tackle instead, they got to trade it back. That's the one thing I really think Omar has made a big difference in, is the idea that you're not stuck where you line up. Like if instead of, hey, this is the player we really want, okay, take him. It's, hey, this is the player we want. Great. Now let's get to where that player has good value instead of taking him here where he doesn't. I think that's something that Omar has done a nice job of.
Yeah. Absolutely. Sticking with defensive linemen, just to talk about a couple that are down there. Walter Nolan, TJ Sanders, those are the two that I think about first and foremost with the guys that are down there. What can you tell me about, what you've seen from them over the first couple days? And is there somebody else that's down there that I didn't say yet that's been jumping off the page to you?
Dude, this defensive line, I'm sorry, I'm checking my notes here. This defensive line group is awesome. Josh Farmer from Florida State, probably the most consistent guy out here, is a big dude. Doesn't get moved backwards, not flashy. Hoping to talk to him tomorrow. I met his brother today. Really nice guy. Shout out to him. Darius Alexander from Toledo just screams Pittsburgh Steeler in every way to me. Like, if you're a Pitt fan and you remember the whatever the heck the name of that bowl game was in Detroit that they played, the Above Sports or Beyond Sports or I don't know. Nobody actually watched
Wild game. Yeah,
it was a wild game. He had an interception return for a touchdown in that game as a defensive tackle. Dropped out in the middle of the field, got way up, made a great play on the ball, and then returned it. He also had, I think, 11 pass breakups in his college career. It's just like,
I thought you were gonna say last season. I was gonna say Cam Hayward.
Yeah, like it's a, like, he just really feels like a Steelers player to me. I don't know where he's going to get drafted. He's the guy that didn't have a lot of buzz coming in, so like he could be available a lot later.
And a smaller school guy, yeah.
185 on the big board at NFL Mock Draft Database right now. I think, I would think 4th or 5th round. And again, if you're talking about double dipping, for sure, somebody that could be an option there. Aeneas Peebles is not a Steelers-looking player at all, but I love him. He's short. He's fiery. He's like poor man's Aaron Donald. It actually kind of looks like it's like it's like a lot. It's like if you told me Aaron Donald had like a third cousin who like was not quite as good that played for Virginia Tech, I'd be like, oh, it's that guy. He's really explosive, gets upfield. Again, not like what the Steelers do, and I don't know if there would be room on the defensive line for him and DeMarvin Leal both being kind of like penetration / pass rush first guys, but I'm interested. Yahya Black is a guy that I thought had a rough first day and had a really strong second day. I always kind of circle those guys. I'm seeing these guys 3 times. They obviously play a lot, but I always feel like guys that like step up when they struggle are worth noting. Jamari Caldwell is another good like elite pass rush moves from an interior slot. I'm not sure that he's a Steelers player, but I think he's a good one. Other team here, Deion Walker is a house. Walter Nolan is the best player here, and he got hurt today. I don't know how serious it is. Walked off the field kind of limpy. He's a first-round pick, in my opinion. TJ Sanders is a guy I watched some South Carolina because I have Raheem Sanders in the fantasy league, but I can't say I was spending a lot of time watching their interior defensive line when that was happening. I've been really impressed with him. I didn't have any thoughts about him before I got here, and I think he's really good. Cameron Jackson from Florida is another just huge dude. And also, Cameron Jackson spent the first 3 years, I believe, of his college career. Yeah, first 3 at Memphis. And as you know, the Steelers are required by law to acquire every player that went to the University of Memphis that makes it to the NFL. So it's just a matter of time. I don't know if it's going to be now or later, but Cam Jackson will eventually be a Steeler.
There we go. Okay. Yeah, same with, the Maryland connection, obviously. People are going to put that together. So in Memphis, that just makes sense as well. Yeah, okay, good stuff. Because, I only really knew of 2 guys within that group coming into this process. I haven't really dove into much yet. So good stuff. Is there anybody outside of those position groups, obviously, because we're focusing more just on the Steelers, that has stood out to you through the first couple days?
Yeah, a couple edge rushers on this first group. I'm not even trying to watch them, but like I can't help it. Oladeo from UCLA, he was a late add to this game. That guy's awesome. He lines up all over the place. He's really long. He's got great hands. He's really, really good. Mike Green, the Marshall guy, just eviscerates.
I was wondering if you were going to say it.
Yep. Dude, his wins in pass rush reps are just emphatic. Like he doesn't beat people. He buries them. And I love it. David Walker from Central Arkansas is a guy that I obviously knew nothing about and has caught my eye a couple times. Talked about a couple of the guards I like. Mason Taylor, son of NFLer Jason Taylor from Woodland Hills, he had a really nice catch today. I think he's having a good week. I feel like he's the best at tight ends here. Yeah, I think that's it. That's like of the non-Steelers positions that like really flash for me. I want to just really briefly. Dart and Milrow to me are the guys that are like legitimate day 2 options here. I've been of the opinion that Milrow is going to go higher than that. I don't know. I'm starting to waver. I thought he was just awful today. I posted one rep on Twitter where he like probably gets sacked twice and then he throws it, like bounces it 20 yards short of the guy he's throwing it at. It's just uncompetitive. And then I want to tell, like, he gets the last rep. It's like they say, like, last rep of practice, 3rd and 10. You got 4 vertical routes. Not 4 verticals to play, but like 4 guys going downfield. None of them are like super open, but nobody's double covered. Okay, like you know what I mean, like they're all like open enough that you could throw it, and he checks it down for a 6-yard gain. And I'm just like, man, if you won't take that shot here, you're never gonna take it. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I don't know. That one really turned like that. Like my stomach turned when I watched that happen. I was like, ugh. So I don't know. Jackson Dart has been fine. He'll be somebody's backup. I don't really think he has a whole lot of like starter upside, but he's kind of on that fringe area where like it's not out of the question. It's just probably not likely for him. You know, it's like drafting, I don't know, Matt Schaub. Like if you knew you were getting Matt Schaub, where would you draft him? Like I don't know. You know what I mean? Like that's about how I feel.
Yeah. Man, that's tough for Milroe, especially like, man, like I feel like a lot of teams would rather see him take that shot and it be an incompletion than take that check down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just kind of the way I view it. And I wonder how teams are kind of assessing that as well when they see that happen. But all right, good stuff. We will continue this conversation tomorrow. Alan, until then, tell the people they can find you.
At @Saunders_PGH on X, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. PGH Steelers Now site's account, SteelersNow.com. Go there, read all my written work so I can get paid. Steelers Now, sign up for SM Plus. Use the promo code Allen10. Get all the best stuff from me, DB, and the whole rest of Steelers Now team, plus an ad-free reading experience, which is epic. And like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications here on the YouTube channel as we are very, very close as we are continuing our march, our drive to 15,000, and we are
Mario Lemieux, Alan Faneca, David DeCastro, Mason McCormick, Dovydas Neverauskas, days away or subscribers away. I hope not days away, subscribers away. 66 subscribers away from 50.
We got to do it way better than 60. I'll go Donald Evans, a defensive end, 66. That's not a common one.
There we go. If you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever your podcast from, be sure to leave a 5-star review over there. Subscribe over there. Got to get back to reading some of those reviews, so keep dropping them. If you would, please, if you are over there. Then follow me everywhere at Zachary Smith, PGH, for Alan Saunders, and myself. Thanks for jumping in. Take another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.